And welcome to the channel, everybody. So it's that time. Time for the last of the panels from Summonerfest. As you guys have seen, they've all been a little different, a little, not just in the fact of how they've been handled, things like that, but also in the fact of how quickly or not necessarily on time I've made it into the panels, meaning where I've been positioned, how well the audio comes across, things like that. This is definitely something I'm going to be addressing for next year. I got a couple things in place already, and we're going to be looking at doing some upgrades on equipment and stuff to put this in a little better position. Also, try and time panels a little better next year. I know you may have heard it from plenty of content creators that they miss panels because they didn't know when they were going on or things like that. It was pretty subtle. It was on the cards that they gave us, and there was one other spot that it was posted. So I do understand, especially in the chaos of everything, how easily it was for most people to miss it. The cards, as you can see here, I'll go ahead and show you guys. And you can find out real quickly. I apologize. I want to make sure I grab a particular one. I grabbed this one on purpose because this one, you guys can try every code on it. They're all exempt and done for and been used. So, but more so to show you guys appropriately what I was talking about here. This is the program schedule that they gave us. I will tell you this much. I'm sure most people, in spite of the fact that it does say all the times and everything as far as that goes, were more concentrated on this side of the card. This was the side of the card where you went around, you got your different spins, you did your different things to earn your different spins. This is a backup card they gave me when I won the 9,000 units. So that is a different one than the one that I didn't get stamps on that one. Just to kind of keep it in mind as far as that goes. But that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. This one is the character creation panel. I really hate that I missed as much of this one as I did, especially considering, and to my apologies to her again, not that I didn't apologize in person, I did miss Kabam Honeydew's part of this particular panel. And her and I talked about it a couple different times, I still got quite a bit of the panel, and I will tell you this much: I got a little bit of like what goes into what went into the different boss designs, and of course what it went into one of our latest champions in the game. But I'll let them go ahead and explain that to you. It's some really good information, and also on top of that too, it shows the amount of love and dedication these employees of Kabam put into these different champions. And I knew that really well after the first time that I met Kabam Honeydew, but to see some of the other development team talk about their passion, how they brought their own personal lives into it, and how important representation has been to making sure they've taken care of in this game, I think was really inspiring, and I hope you guys enjoy it. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get right into that panel, get you guys what I was able to catch from it, and get you updated. And I will see you guys on the other side of it.
Then we have the regular Kang boss. So this is kind of a back to basics situation, but with all these modern learnings. So actually still trying to create this novel gameplay experience for you, so you're not just playing the standard default MCOC. Still things are getting shaken up, but we are using more of our existing mechanics. Like Kang is trying to act like a tech champion here, and reward your knowledge of what tech champions are, what they do, focusing on a single class. Then there's Superior Kang. So this is taking a lot of what we learned and just polishing it down. Focusing on creating that novel gameplay again, around some core MCOC game actions. So combo openers, parry, punish, heavy, punish special, etc. So you can see here that we have moved from a space of just kind of doing stuff because it's hard to doing stuff because we think it creates novel, interesting, and fun gameplay, and also it's hard. So, also a little fun little fact, this is the first piece of content I playtested, which is an interesting place to jump into the deep end on.
Same.
Yeah. All right, and now we are in the Act 8 bosses. So in this, we're learning from our stuff, and one of the biggest things we were starting to take away is bosses should not just be difficult. Bosses should be, and they shouldn't just be fun. They should be a treat. Like, you should be getting to the end of these chapters and wanting to fight these bosses because they actually are like the highlight of the content, not as just a thing for you to overcome, but it's because it's a game, right? And so we kind of have shifted our design philosophy to the whole encounter is kind of a feast for the player in terms of like everything we can do. So we started like going way harder on the models that we were able to create for these champions with new animations. We started really getting weird with the mechanics that we created, both the advanced version of Craven's Traps for Citalis, Bahamut's projectile, Sarastes having like a cool auto block mechanic, and all sorts of these bosses getting like just the budget with what we were able to do with gameplay novelty has just gone through the roof. And we also have shifted some of our focus to not just using those new mechanics, but also making sure we are using some of the existing mechanics that you know about and that you have on your champions, letting those interact with these boss fights. Because while we want to make sure we're creating this awesome treat-like experience, it still needs to be MCOC. It still needs to be this game that you are like playing, you're building your roster towards, and we want to reward all of that. Also importantly, difficulty is used for challenge rather than consumable sinks. A lot of the time people will see these bosses and be like, oh, this is like arbitrarily hard because we want to like get a certain amount of like, you know, units out of players. In reality, these numbers, when they do come, end up being pretty low, and so aren't really a worthwhile source of income, essentially. And it's much better that we use these bosses as a way to create memorable experiences for players. So, using difficulty for challenge rather than just because we can. We also have used the wounded mechanic less now. Wounded mechanic, again, that long stun where you do a ton of damage. It taught us a lot of really interesting things about MCOC, namely how awesome it feels to hit like, you know, triple digit damage numbers a lot of the time and stuff. And it still has a lot of value, but we were finding it was getting old. So we started to rethink how we could let you deal these massive amounts of damage to bosses. I'll just say the wounded mechanic will never come back because it's still pretty cool. But yeah, we want to evolve. Also, Glycon was here, and that was something that I did. It was a very interesting journey and taught me a lot, and we'll get to some of those things in a second. I also just recently did Dread Emperor Doom. So Everest bosses, so these are very interesting. So Nameless Collector, notable for being an endgame boss in actual endgame content, which is pretty neat. And as you can kind of see here, like the Nameless Collector does have a lot of mechanics that could be described, like are similar to his like regular counterpart. Having this actually be an endgame content rather than a progression blocker means that it's been much less problematic in the history of the game. The Nameless Hoon Master. Fun fact on this guy, this was the first boss that I designed, and was a crazy place to jump on to the kind of boss design train because it had a lot of, it just had so much history behind it. But understanding that history is what kind of allowed me to be here today. So this I would call an exercise in expanding difficulty while managing complexity. How do you take a fight like the Nameless Grandmaster with all those abilities and add extra difficulty to it and novelty without just completely melting the human mind? The way that I ended up going about solving that problem was to use the concept of children's games, games that were very well understood in most cultures, and use those as the templates for the added asks to allow people to rely on their existing knowledge to the best of their ability. So thereby introducing something new while reducing the complexity budget that I was using up. And then Ares. Ares had a lot of interesting thesis statements. One of the ones that I really liked was easy to understand, hard to master. At the end of the day, it's very easy for players to tell each other what you need to do against Ares. We've seen this go around essentially. Like, you can kind of communicate in 1 or 2 sentences, like how you are supposed to beat Ares. Actually doing that is a whole nother thing. And this is something we really wanted to hit for reasons we talked about, as far as making Ares a repeatable, recurring piece of content, making sure that we could not overwhelm people with having to learn new stuff every time, and really focus on relearning the core aspect, which we wanted to get to. Reaction time and memory ended up being the skill ask that we went on for that. This was also a boss that I had a huge amount of cooperation from Kabam and Kevin from. We worked very closely on this, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. So, what I learned, what makes a great boss? I would say the first one is focus on the fun. Ultimately, we want to create memorable experiences in the game. Difficulty is very, very important, but it should be used to try and create that challenge. Which means, like, you want the player to feel when they've succeeded that it was important that they succeeded, they overcame something. You don't want it to feel like they just got to the end and just wasted their time doing something that, like, let's say, like a robot could have done, right? It's important that, like, you as the player overcame this challenge. It adds meaning. And it should be fun to both succeed, and it should also be fun to lose. Level the playing field. This was a big one. We spent a lot of time making these bosses, and we want to basically have them be difficult, but that difficulty is really hard to create when there are 300 champions in the game, each with their own unique ways of tackling fights and dealing damage. So, leveling the playing field, meaning reducing the number of viable ways that a champion can, like, complete the fight, means that it gives you more leeway to set a stage on which this fun encounter can take place. If you clean up all these loose ends and variables, you're left with a very clean playing field in which you can lay out a very, very rigid set of rules that end up creating a really fun experience. It's basically, cleaning up your room before, someone comes over. Great. The ask should be clear. We like to have something called a skill ask in our champion and bosses. And as I mentioned with Ares, it's important that a player is able to tell any other player a large amount of the information that is important to the fight. I wrote 70% here. Later, I thought, actually, with the word important modifying this, it's closer to 90%. Basically, this is just a great thing in all design, essentially, is simplicity. And I think a really great measure of that is how easily players can communicate between each other what needs to happen. You need to have novelty, but you need to make sure it's grounded in the core experience that your players are here for. You can't just just because you want to force people not to play MCOC. That's why they came here, and you need to sell them on that experience. Ideally, in this game's context, we want to require players to use the knowledge that they have in a way that they haven't used it before. Use art to create memorable moments. There's a lot of ways that you can use art, and a lot of people will suggest things that seem very cool, but you have a budget when you're creating in these things, and you need to make sure that you are putting that budget towards moments that people will remember in their minds. This is why we could have done a lot of really cool things with Dread of Doom, but one of the ones that I really wanted to chase was him slapping you when you got knocked out. Try forgetting that. And then this one is one that I've learned more recently, but I think it's very important. Always reward an attempt with progress. This is very true for pretty much any game. Different games reward progress differently. Some games seem like they don't reward progress at all, but are actually rewarding you with progress of how to complete the encounter. For our game, it turns out to just be like, you want to make sure that people are always progressing, especially when they're using their hard-earned time and resources on it. So that came in for initially on Glycon was the first, that kind of idea that you could carry some of your progress into the next fight. Ares was a great example of being able to use like gain vigors each time you came back in, and Dreadnought Brigade tried to do a similar thing with getting knocked out due to the slap mechanic. Ultimately, what this does is it just lets players have a better sense that you are invested in their success, and it vastly increases the challenge that you can ask of people while still having the fight actually be fair. And there we go. That's a lot. But any questions, comments, or concern? Yes.
One of the things that I really enjoyed was with Ares, the fact that there were two different ways to take him down. You could go with the traditional understanding the entire mechanics, or you could just die 20 times and you're guaranteed you're going to beat him. I love the idea that you guys lean into the fact that not all players are going to be skilled enough to do every mechanic every time, get everything perfect, and everything like that. Is there more plans to lean into things like that?
Absolutely. That last bullet that we went over, that's always reward that progress. Right? We want to make sure we're respecting your time. And importantly, some of the mechanics where they compensate for death is a very cool trait of them, is that they tend to help players along rather than make them punch through content. So absolutely in the future, you can expect similar, not exact things, just new fun spins on such a similar concept.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, real quick, we might want to hold on to the questions. I promise I won't be offended if you ask them after my segment.
It sounds good. Yeah, let's pass it off.
We're probably going to hear Mike coming in loud at 4.
Just take our hand. And feel free to find me after if you want to ask me anything about anything.
All right.
All right, that one's
All right. Is this doing anything?
Yeah, it is.
Cool. All right. So yeah, we're going to talk about Fadiga Prubakar. Yeah, this one mattered quite a bit to me. For those of you who haven't heard me talk about this, my wife's family is actually from India. We've had a few characters from South Asia, Kamala Khan, who's Pakistani, Omega Sentinel, and then also Sorcerer Supreme, if you count alternate realities as mapping to us. But like, Pavitra is very Indian. It's a big part of his identity, and we wanted to do it right. So, quick intro for me, Chris, also known as DLL. I've been here for 3.5 years now. Joined shortly after Ray and Stewart. And fun fact, I've played the game for almost since the beginning. I had been trying to get into the content creator program, and I joined the CCP, like the server, after I had been hired, but before people knew I had been hired. And it's like, yeah, nobody's gotten in for a while. It's weird. It's just me this time. Yeah, but still haven't made a tech champion. Someday. Those are the rest. Yeah. To kind of, I already touched on that part, but to kind of talk about this, the first time I really ran into this was when I was building Kushala, because for those of you who haven't heard this, to make a very long story short, we did a lot of work on Chioth to get it right. Like, she was an MCOC original character, but we brought in cultural consultants. There was a whole lot of work that was going into that. Next to that process, I was building Kushala, who there was not all of that work done. And I was very aware as I was going through that process that, like, I was doing my best, but I did not have a lot of support to really feel confident that I was getting it right, you know? And I don't really have any regrets there, but that was just something that stuck with me, where it's like, I want to keep an eye out for a way to really do this right in the future. Since then, I went to the Game Developers Conference last year in San Francisco. That was very cool. One of the talks I went to was by the art director for this game, Detective Dotson, which he called a cultural joyride through modern India. And he talked a lot about how, in his opinion, it was very important to show more of India than just the history, just the myths, just the big Bollywood movies. He really wanted you to see how complex and interesting modern India was as a whole. And without getting into a lot of that, that just kind of inspired how I came at the vehicle. So one of the first things here, we've got a video for you. My sister-in-law is a professional Kathak dancer, which is like one of several classical Indian dance forms. And early on in the process, after I got assigned to Pavitra, I reached out to her and asked her if she would be willing to record some poses or like quick little animations that we could then send to the art department to use as reference. Yeah, this is just a very, very quick, rough little one. There were about 6 or 7 of these. And you can kind of see how that informed the idol animation. But yeah, we got some from her, some from a friend of hers who performs another classical dance called Kuchipudi, and we sent all of that to the animation team, and they kind of combined that with Kalari Payatu, which is a martial art from Kerala that we knew that Sony's animation team had already taken inspiration from for the movie. They kind of put that together with some other references of more classical Spider-Man, and I think I'm really happy with how it came together because it felt like all of those came through in the final product and really created something unique that felt real because it had all of these influences. Yeah, and then, so like obviously we talked about the movie. If you have seen the V2's gameplay, then you've seen kind of the comic panels cutting up in the Special 3. That was another thing we wanted to bring in. I had to name his special attacks, which is always an assignment we have, but like sometimes it's harder than others because sometimes it's just like, yeah, and then they use the staff and the staff has a name, so that's what this is called. And sometimes you have to come up with stuff like this. So like, again, reaching back to, I wanted to represent as much of India as I could and as much of Pavitra as I could. That first special one named the crab bow mount. Crab bow is a specific kind of bow that was used by Mughal horse archers in India's history, and then a mount is actually what you call a yo-yo trick, like a specific kind of yo-yo trick, and so he's literally like making a bow with a yo-yo, so that felt very clean. Agni, the first part of that second word, is the Sanskrit word for fire, and also the god of fire. Any Avatar fans who are thinking of Agni Kai, yes, that's that word. But Agni Nrutyan basically means fire dance. This is his cash out where he does a bunch of damage. That was the idea there. And then one of my favorite little things is this Priscilla Volpe. That spider is real. That's not photoshopped at all. It is native to India and it was thought extinct for like 200 years and was rediscovered in the wild just before the Spider-Verse movie came back out. And obviously that's a coincidence, but also no, it's not. That's Pavitra. Yeah, I kind of flew through that, but that is basically what I have to say, where it's just really important to me to try and bring in as much as possible to the art process. The actual champion design process for him was a little simpler, right? Like, we knew what we wanted to do with the Mystic class. We had a bunch of spiders in the game already. We knew that we wanted to play around, continue playing around with our zones and trigger volumes, similar to Carolina. It was inspired by a lot of that work. But yeah, people ask sometimes how much input we have on the art process. It is not always this much. It's not always as much as Rain had with Carolina, but sometimes when we do feel passionate, we can kind of help out our incredible art team with stuff like this, and it's always really nice when we can. So yeah, I'll open it up to questions there, and then again, if you have questions for Stuart as well, his boss talk, then we've got some time.
No one else will ask a question. How's it feel being the most handsome employee at Kabam?
Don't put that on you.
This character, can you say his name?
Pavitra Prabhakar.
Sorry, I'm kind of deaf.
So we should talk about this for a minute, because in the movie they pronounce it a lot closer to Pavitra, And that is because there is a real Indian name, Pavitra. There is not a real person's name, Pavitr. But what they were clearly doing with the Spider-Verse characters was making various names that were close to Peter Parker, right? Spider-Ham is Peter Porker. We had Penny Parker. We had Peter B. Parker. And so, although I think the way to write it more accurately probably would have been Paveeetr or TIR, they didn't do that. But I think that that's kind of what, pretty clearly what they were going for was Pavitr, so that it sounded like Peter, right? The last name is Prabhakar, but that's fine if that's a little, it's a lot of quick vowels.
And the First Nations characters, could you say their names?
Yeah, that was Chielth, who was a MCOC original character based on some of the nations in British Columbia. And then Kushala, who is nominally of the Apache tribe, but I have not seen any evidence that anybody in the Apache or Dene nations actually was talked to for that, honestly. It may have.
And the first one, what's the last
Chielth, it's
say the last sound?
Ilth. ILTH.
Oh, okay.
If you check out the website, there are some more resources and pronunciation guides around Chielth. Like I said, a lot of really detailed work went into their design.
Special shout outs to the person who designed Shields tattoos, who is an actual tattoo artist that you can go and book tattoos at.
NBC here?
Now, first off, I absolutely love the fact that that you guys created an original character with heavy cultural references to it, and then bringing in Kushala as well. But as well, there are many Native American characters that are more predominantly known in Marvel Comics. One of the ones that really sticks out in my head would be somebody like Forge. Is that somebody that you guys just couldn't work with Marvel enough to get into the game yet, or was it a conscious decision to very much so steer into a different direction?
So I can speak to this a little bit as the person who is partially responsible for the roadmap currently. Kind of similar to what Aiden was talking about yesterday. Sorry, Champ Daddy. I don't want to call him that. Champ Father.
Is that really bad?
No. Forge kind of lives in the same vein as some of the other champions that we've released this year, like Blue Marvel, like Blizzard, that kind of are interesting. A lot of people know about them, but sometimes their abilities don't really translate to MCOC well, or they just get replaced by other characters over the course of the roadmap process. We don't have anything against, like I'm pretty sure Forge is on our warrant that we can use him. However, there's currently at the time no plans to work on him, or add him to the game rather. But like there is, for the most part, nothing stopping us. It's just we want to push other champions instead.
I would also just add that in Shield's specific case, we saw that we have an amazing opportunity and we have a great relationship with Marvel, and that there were people on our team very passionate about the idea of getting to use one of our privileges of getting to make custom Marvel characters to add to the collection of representation in Marvel. We can include representation that's already there, and we like doing that, but this was an extremely unique circumstance which we just had to take. The champion designer who worked on Shield has his First Nations himself and had an amazing connection and worked very closely with a lot of informed consultants, and I hope there's some marketing out there that shows how important it was to him, because hearing him talk about it is truly incredible.
It was a very long-running passion project.
Yeah, so
we're incredibly proud of what we were able to do with the training provided.
Mike just texted in the chat saying.
Okay. Yeah, on that similar note, what Stuart is talking about also, we do actually have that marketing material, that video documenting the process of making Shield on YouTube. Go and find it. It is incredible. It's awesome.
It's worth watching.
It's so cool.
Given that this ended up starting earlier, the natural window for this is passed, but obviously the obligatory shout-outs to Carolina B.
Yeah, I think we should probably cut for questions there just for the sake of getting people back, because I'm sure everybody wants to watch the fight.
Yeah. Thanks for your father, Zach.
Okay, guys, welcome back. And that panel, like I said, not the full extent of it. I did miss the first probably about half an hour, mostly because things got rearranged on the schedule, and I was trying to fit so much in. By the time I got there, I was a little late and got in at the back of the room. So it's not as clear as the second dev panel or the writers panel was as far as audio and visual, but I still tried to do my best for you guys. So I hope you did enjoy this. I hope you got some good information. I hope you've seen the passion that I see every time I talk to these employees. I know I've seen it talked about, particularly if you haven't watched it yet, Truth Comics panel to recap everybody's Summonerfest experience. Go over and watch that. There are some things in there that I will say that him and I are going to definitely talk about as far as representation of members of the community. But I will say at the same time, you will see why between these panels and the different videos I put out and my final recap, as well as listening to the different ones of us that were there for things like that, how our viewpoints really were changed. And it was not because Kabam gave us a bunch of free stuff. None of that mattered. What it really mattered was the personal interactions that every one of us got with different members of the Kabam staff. I've mentioned it before in the dev panel videos. Between the first one and the second one, I got to talk to Kabam Dragon, and she made a lot of things clear that I went ahead and conveyed to other people as well. And there was never a point in time that anyone shied away from having a conversation with me about anything that I wanted to talk about throughout the entire weekend that I was there. Be it if we were at Kabam headquarters or if we were out at, just to hang out at the end of the evening, where a bunch of us were just at the bar and having a few drinks, and Kabam employees showed up and were there to hang out with us, but still didn't shy away from the questions, didn't shy away from anything whatsoever. I really wish that I could have gotten some more of those private conversations on camera, just because of the fact that a lot of that information would have been very valuable for you guys. But I will do my best, and I know other members of the community are doing their best to make sure that gets shared with all of you guys as well. So I hope you guys really have enjoyed the panel videos. Next up, I'm going to release the interviews that I did over the weekend with different YouTubers that I got a chance to talk to over the weekend. I'm working on the format on that. There may be 2 videos total, or it may be 3. There are 6 interviews total, but some of them are rather short, and one of them is over 30 minutes long. So I don't want to necessarily shove them all into the same video, but I'm going to kind of figure that out today and figure out exactly how I want to release those. But they'll be out tomorrow. Well, at least the first one will be out tomorrow. And then by the middle of this week, I'll do my final recap of what I felt about Summonerfest. Please stay tuned for that. For anybody new to the channel, I want to thank you very much. Anybody who has stuck around for the last 3 years, I want to absolutely tell you how grateful I am. This journey has been absolutely amazing, and I'm so glad to bring another phase of it to you guys. But until the next video, guys, I just want to say I hope everyone has a great day and a great night, and pulls a God tier champion soon. And until the next one, guys, I love you all. Peace out.